Hello and welcome to my live post-watch reaction of The Mandalorian Chapter 9, The Marshal. I realised I didn't actually do any post-watch reactions to the first season of The Mandalorian. That'll probably be because I watched it while I was doing my hospital shifts, and so I couldn't really do a live reaction. Um, but yeah, no, massive fan of the first season of Mandalorian. I think I gave my vague opinions of it when I did my season 2 trailer live reaction, so you can check that out so I don't rehash old material. But um, yeah, good strong start opening to the season. Again, I love the Western motif. That's extremely strong in a series. Like there's a scene where Mandalorian first arrives in the Tatooine village, and he's essentially slowly kind of rolling along on his speeder bike, looking as the townspeople kind of uh, watch this new stranger come in. And obviously, he kind of walks into the tavern. Not called tavern, is it? What's it called in the Western scenario? Tavern's more fantasy. He walks into the local drinking hall, and you know, person's like, haven't seen you around here before, stranger. Got kind of cowboy language. That's very much reminiscent of if you took away the speed and replaced it with a horse, if you took away the kind of more Tatooine looking buildings and replaced it with kind of Western stalls. If you took away the Mandalorian armor and replaced it with a cowboy outfit, you would get any kind of normal spaghetti Western um, scene. So I love that they've continued that motif very strongly along. Yeah, so we basically pick up more or less where we left off, Mandalorian. And we get a lot of scenes from the trailer in here, a lot of the first. I'm going to stop shaking so much because I realise that's very disconcerting because my camera, because the background's stationary, but obviously I'm shaking around. We get a lot of scenes that we get from the trailer already here, which is good because it means we got a lot to come along that we haven't seen before yet. And I always love kind of Western stories where the stranger walks in and the enemy isn't so much the people at the village, but someone else, and basically it's that age old Western kind of narrative of the hero and the villagers band together against their enemy. And basically, we got one of those kind of siege type stories in the last season, The Mandalorian. That's the first one where we meet Shock Trooper. And here's a bit different because instead of raiders, the enemy is a monster. It's the dragon. So I always like that kind of story, and this is essentially what we kind of get. Again, I mean, there's a big underlying kind of part of the story, which I'll save until the end. Um, what I do love about the story is we're getting, and in fact, this series as a whole is we're getting a lot more kind of characterization of the Tusken Raiders. Thanks for very just ruined the brilliant flawless green screen thing I've got going on here. No, what I love about this series is we're getting deeper look at the Tusken Raiders, because the Tusken Raiders in Star Wars have always been a very problematic kind of, how do I say? Have always been well, essentially, Tusken Raiders and other portrayals like it are, the savage natives, the desert people, the nomad kind of character type. And there's always a kind of problematic attitude when you kind of portray those as just, kind of other and more uncivilized group of people. And even the name, like Tusken Raiders, have another nickname which we see in this episode as well, Sand People. And Sand People is an existing pejorative in our society for um, Arabs, essentially, people who live in the Middle East, and then the kind of more nomad kind of civilizations over there. So I always felt a bit weird about Tusken Raiders in Star Wars because it always seemed to be kind of really the depiction of ethnic minorities, as these uncivilized group of people. So I'm glad we get some kind of portrayal of them in this season, which is actually more in line with, oh, actually they do have this kind of level of intelligence, but we didn't really get a grasp of that earlier because we never really had any of the characters try to communicate with them. But Mandalorian apparently knows how to speak Tusken and does so quite fluently. And at no point is it kind of the whole talking down kind of talking to them like in a way that Obi-Wan essentially fending them off in A New Hope was very much kind of using the superstitions against them. Here isn't kind of using any kind of cultural appropriation against them. It's more, he's talking to them at their level, and they in kind respond back, and you get that kind of dialogue where we see they actually have more potential and intelligence to them than we've seen before. And I do like that. I do like that kind of expansion on this relatively long-standing part of Star Wars, because Tusken Raiders were probably the first aliens. No, Jawas would be the first aliens that we see in Star Wars, but and then obviously the Kraken dragon, Cretan dragon skeleton. But I think after the Jawas, pretty certain the next thing we see are Tusken Raiders. So they've been part of Star Wars for a long time. And I'm glad they're getting this kind of expansion to them. But the big thing in this episode is Boba Fett. So it was apparently teased slash rumored in the last season, when we were last on Tatooine. We see a mysterious figure, or we see the legs of a figure standing over the corpse of Fennec Shand, and literally we see the legs. Dimly lit silhouette, and apparently that's enough to convince a whole lot of people that this was Boba Fett. I mean, I was fine believing that, but it did seem very stretchy, and obviously Lucasfilm didn't confirm at the time, but then earlier this year slash about a month or two after I actually watched The Mandalorian, because I didn't actually watch it until middle of COVID, because that's how long it took me to get Disney Plus. Oh well, no, that's how long it took Disney Plus to come to the UK. So that's why I had to wait around for it. But it was confirmed that Tamira Morrison, who of course plays Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones and plays all the clones in Revenge of the Sith, and so by that notion and also he voices Jango Fett in the re-releases of the original trilogy to help with that continuity. It was confirmed he was going to be in this season, and so obviously that kind of just fueled fire to the rumours. Fueled fire slash confirmed the fire. And then, yeah. So in this episode, we see a figure appear. He's wearing Boba Fett's, what very strongly appears to be Boba Fett's distinctive green armor. But there are a lot of gaps missing, and it looks very worn down. And instantly, I knew this wouldn't be Boba Fett because it just didn't seem to have like the same imposing presence. And I don't think. And very quickly, we get the reveal that it's not Boba Fett. It's a character called Cobb Vanth, who was actually first appeared in a expanded universe book, and he had obtained the armor from Jawas, which is consistent with what we see last Boba Fett. And obviously, in Legends, Boba Fett gets eaten by a Scarlac and then escapes, and then gets eaten again and then escapes again. It's kind of a comedy of errors, really. And I always liked that about the expanded universe, and it was one that when I was back when it was revealed that Disney had bought Lucasfilm and the expanded universe was going to be completely thrown away, and I was a massive advocate against it. I have settled a bit more on that, in that I don't mind that they've got rid of the expanded universe as canon, but I've seen a reason to I don't see why we can't use the previous establishing kind of hierarchy of if the film say it happened, it happened. If the books contradict the film takes priority. If there's no contradiction, the books are fine. I think that can still work, especially with kind of the more fringe areas of Star Wars lore. But they've kind of, whatever. Anyway, so I was always a big fan that Boba Fett had survived because otherwise, really, if you think about it, Boba Fett's kind of whole legendary status is very much blown up by fans more than whatever we see in the show because Boba Fett's considerably, even in the Clone Wars, in like the height of like Boba Fett kind of obsession that people have. They didn't really do a fantastic job of showing Boba Fett. They were trying to humanize Boba Fett because he was a child soldier effectively. But really, Clone Wars wasn't the best place to do it because I mean everyone's a child soldier there. I just felt they should have pushed Boba Fett more and gone dark, and I think that's where they were gonna go because there was some unreleased footage of Boba Fett and some other Bounty Hunter plot arcs that we never actually got to see released. But that would have been nothing for me too little, too late. Even I'm a massive fan of like the Mandalorian kind of laws. Most Star Wars fans are. So obviously, Tamura Morrison plays Jango Fett, and so he would obviously be what an older Boba Fett would look like. And I'm glad they've got him back. And he appears at the right at the end of the episode, which I was surprised by. I didn't think that they'd actually bring him in so soon. I don't know what this means. It's a bit of a oh, just missed him. Well, we'll see where he turns up next time, and it's gonna be. I mean, to be fair, in the first season we stuck to a few planets that kind of again with this whole Western arc because in Westerns you wouldn't really travel long distances. So we were on Tatooine, we were on that one planet, and then we were on that other planet, and then we were on another planet, and we didn't really go much further than those planets. So I think if this is anything to go by, we might Tatooine anyway. But what's about? I mean, to clarify, it's not actually confirmed that Tamura Morrison in this episode is Boba Fett, and he could be a clone for all we know. I mean, he is a clone if he is Boba Fett, but you know what I mean. But it's likely this is, and it's so yeah. And I don't know if it's makeup or if it's not too rude for me to say, Timur Morrison hasn't really aged well in the last few years, but I had to double check it was Timur Morrison. I think I'm just so used to kind of 2002 era Timur Morrison, that seeing a bald Timur Morrison now kind of I had to take a pause and be like, is that Morrison? But I was right. I knew I was right. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of the time to do Boba Fett's character justice and actually get what is essentially kind of a myth more than a man to actually live up to the myth, and do him, do him, and do his character kind of well, and see how it balances off against the Mandalorian. I think this is the character everyone's going to be kind of focusing on a lot at this point because Boba Fett is the most famous Mandalorian in Star Wars, and he's barely even a Mandalorian. So it's. But we'll see how Figgy and Figgy no, that's Marvel. I'm rusty. Let's see how the showrunners Favreau, that was it. Go with this. I think the fight, but I love the kind of the scale and of the fight with the Krayt Dragon. I love how when we get the final fight with the Krayt Dragon, the aspect ratio shifts from Mandalorian's default aspect ratio to a 16:9 aspect ratio, so we get a full screen kind of portrayal of the fight. I'm a big fan of aspect ratio shifts in films, so I did appreciate that. Although I am still somewhat against having letterboxes on TV. If you know you're making TV, you know a vast majority of your audience is watching on 16:9 monitors because very few people have widescreen monitors that are wider than 16:9. Then don't make your broadcast thinner than that. It's just very artificial way to invoke cinematic notions, in my opinion. But that's that. I've complained about that all the time. I complain about it here. I complain about it every time I see TV with a finite aspect ratio in 16:9. Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to really judge where we're going because it's a slow start, and the Mandalorian it's got its arc, but the arc is always a slow burner, and really it does more focus on the individual episodes. But I think that works because that kind of works in the whole Western genre anyway, and the whole kind of moving along here, wandering hero, which is what the Mandalorian is based off of, the man with no face. So it's hard to really judge this place in this whole series, but it's a strong start. I enjoyed it. It was very entertaining. Um, it was funny. Uh, it looks cinematically beautiful. It's kind of some of the best looking, consistently best looking Star Wars of all time. I'm not sure if I think it's probably the best consistently looking Star Wars of all time. Like the Clone Wars took a while to get an art style people actually liked. I mean, I never minded the 2008 Clone Wars film look, but then again, I was also at that time 13 years old, so what did I know? And everyone was like, hey, it's very wooden, it was very blocky. I'm like, to me, it was like, well, this is the deliberate art style. What do I care? But then you compare Clone Wars that was released early this year, and it's beautiful Clone Wars. I guess Rebels was consistent, but I mean, there's also something occasionally off about the art style of Star Wars Rebels. And obviously the films are hit and miss because well, the films are hit and miss in terms of visuals, and that's all I'm going to say on that. So this is consistently very beautiful. I think. I mean, you can see in the image. I mean, this is I've de-sharpened this image for aesthetic reasons. But like, I mean, this is obviously all virtual screens as well. But I mean, it looks great. It looks great. Uh, so yeah, those are my rambles because I don't do coherent, detailed reviews. I do rambles because detailed reviews requires for preparation and editing, and I don't have the time for that. I need to catch up on 2 episodes of Discovery, for God's sake. Also, we've got a Star Wars series and a Star Trek series running concurrently. How great is that? For people who don't feel the need to make it a flame war between two franchises which are trying to depict and tell two different stories. It's great. I'm gonna celebrate that right now by ending the stream and watching Discovery. For some reason, I started my post, and I don't know why I'm sounding more like Nando versus movies now. But for some reason, I started my Discovery post watches as a written blog. I think because I wanted to fill my written blog with some content, and I've decided to continue that because I started that way. So you'll see my thoughts on the next episode if you go to my blog at squishivision.blogspot.com. I think I have a domain for it, but I've not figured that out. But until then, see you guys next time. I don't have a Star Wars style blaster. I only have a contemporary style revolver. So, and it's an air revolver, so I'm in rail. So that's how we're gonna end that. Cool. Right. See you guys next time.